Okay, I've just put a copy of this spreadsheet. I made a spreadsheet that you can do this on, and there's a copy of it, so you can download it directly from this right now during the webinar, or those of you who are catching it later, and I'm sending it to you. I'll send this to you with it later. But what you want to do is take all the planets' positions in your chart. Okay, take all the planets' positions, and you're going to organize the planets from 0 to 30 degrees in order. It doesn't matter what sign they're in. You're putting them in order from 0 to 30 degrees. So see mine, 0, my Venus is 019, but here's 020, Sag, 04, 4 degrees Scorpio, 37, that's Jupiter, 4 degrees Virgo, 50 minutes, that's ascendant, 7 degrees is my Saturn in Leo, 8 degrees Libra, 55 is my Neptune in Libra. So you're seeing them, each one's going in number, 0, 4, 4, 7, 8, 3. It'll be however your chart works. And I have a lot of squares, and they all pile up in this 13 to 15 time. I don't have them at the beginning, so you'll see it pile up. You'll have your own pattern. And this pattern, it's a very special thing. Really, you begin to memorize it. You begin to get to know this. But what it does is whenever the sun enters any sign, it's going to, if you're counting any sign, when the sun enters Aries, it's 0 degrees Aries, it's going to have some relationship to Venus. Some 4 degrees, it's going to hit Jupiter, 4 degrees is going to hit the ascendant, and 7 is going to hit Saturn, 8 is going to hit Libra. So it's going to make an aspect to one of the main aspects, one of the basic aspects will make all the way up. Well, we're not using all the basic aspects for what we're doing. We're not using the sextile. We're not using the semi-sextile. We're not using the 150, the quincunx or inconjunct. We're mostly using a conjunction square opposition, but this puts all the planets in order. So this is your player piano music. Anytime a planet goes through the signs, your reaction nature is going to be this way. I react emotionally first, then I try and understand the emotions or what I want or don't want, then I identify to it. Then I run into the restrictions around it, see what work has to be done. Then I try and see how to escape it or work around it or get a vision about it. Then I'm really forced to have to deal with the reality of it. Then I'm trying to think how to work with this better. Then I'm trying to act on, put my thoughts into motion. Then I'm reflecting and trying to feel secure about it. Then I find a way of making it, changing it, making it more exciting or different. And then my confidence clicks in. Once I've made it different, it hits my sun and my confidence clicks in, and then it hits my midheaven, and I feel accomplished. So this pattern of this sequence of planets, it happens anytime the sun, really any planet you have that goes through a sign, it's going to hit these planets in this sequence. And so it's a really useful thing to know. And when you're trying to work with a chart and you're calculating things, you have the chart in front of you, you're calculating it you're working with it in your mind, and you're watching, oh, what Mars is going through this sign or Sun's going through this sign. You immediately can see the steps or the sequence of how these things happen. And then you have so that's the first thing. So something's at 0 degrees of any sign, it's going to have a relationship for me to my Venus. But if it's in 0 degrees Sag, it's going to be conjunct my Venus. If it's in Capricorn, it's going to be 30 degrees, not really what we consider an aspect. If it's going to be in Aquarius, it'll be a sextile. If it's going to be in Pisces, it'll be a square, because I know the Pisces to Sag is a square. If it's going to be in Aries, it'll be a trine. In Taurus, 150, don't count it. I'm not using that. And it goes into Gemini, it will oppose it in that first degree. So we can immediately go in and see, once we have this pattern set, then we can start using it to watch planets, watch the moon, watch the sun, watch any planet going through a sign. We'll see these steps and these planets being hit in this sequence. It will always be that way for you. And it's very different for other people. So when a planet changes sign, I get an emotional factor first. Other people get aggressive factors. Other people run into other planets first. That's part of the uniqueness of your texture and time. So this is the spreadsheet I've made for degree sign minute for the planet. And I put each of the signs across here and have the aspects on the bottom so you can copy and paste these into the areas of where they need to be. So this is an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what you can download, and that's what I'll be sending to you also. But it's on this sheet that you'll put in, you write on. It's easiest if you do it here, it allows you to organize everything better. So we put this planets in this sequence, in the right sequence from 0 up to 30. And sometimes you'll have gaps of areas where there's no aspects. Sometimes they'll all be piled up in everywhere, there's a whole bunch in a few degrees. And that's just the nature of your intensity. So I have the degrees and the planets put down for that sequence, how they're coming into. I mean, this is really simple things, but they're things that really help you to visualize and look at a chart and imagine how it goes, and be able to work without a computer, without just to work it on your own, in your own mind. So here's the example. We're looking for the sun moving through Aries, or anything moving through Aries, but it's when it hits that first degree of Aries. First degree of Aries, I look at 0 degrees, that's Venus, but it's Sagittarius. So I know fire to fire, that's a trine. It gets to 4 degrees, and it's going to make an aspect to Jupiter, but it's 150 degrees. It's not really in the major aspects, so I'm not going to add that one in. It gets to a little further in 4 degrees. It's going to be 150 to my ascendant, but I'm not going to add it in because I want just major aspects on this. You can add them in if you want. I mean, you're just adding more in the sequence. But then it gets to 7 degrees. It's going to be hitting the Leo 749, and that's going to be Leo to Aries. That's a trine. It's easy to think when it gets to 8 degrees 55, it'll be Leo to Aries to Libra. That's an opposition, so I write the opposition in. When it hits to Leo, 13 degrees, it hits my Pluto, that's a trine to Pluto. Then it goes to Scorpio, no aspect to Mercury, to Mars, no. At 1949, it will square my moon in Cancer. It's in Aries, 19 degrees, it's going to hit 19 degrees in Cancer, it'll square my moon. Goes down, hits 21 degrees of Aries, it's going to be sextile to my Uranus in Gemini. Then it's going to hit 2318, it's going to hit my sun. It's going to oppose my sun. When it's in Aries, it's opposing Libra. So it's easy to determine what the aspect is here. It is really simple things, but we don't think about it to try and do it when you get all the printouts. But this eventually kicks in and you start thinking about this when you do enough charts. But so that's the first one. So we're making this grid, and this will be good for any planet. Every time a planet goes through Aries, it's going to go in this sequence. We have the aspect. We know exactly the degree it happens in. What we don't have yet is the time and the date that this happens at. When we're looking at the sun, we'll look at the times and the dates for these happenings. Then we got our calendar. So you need to do yours. It's worth it. It's just a useful code to work with, to just think things through yourself. And then when the sun goes into Taurus, I mean, this is geared to working with ephemeris, right? Like, so normally we get ephemeris, it looks like we got a sheet and there's the ephemeris with all these numbers on it. Duh. You have to really be nerdy, go look at this planet, this degree, this sign, and follow each column is for planet, where it is each day. That's the normal information. But so that's just that. But what I do is I would go in and highlight when it went into Aries and highlight the Aries, highlight the sign I'm working through. Okay, so we'll come back to these, but this is just, we're doing this in our own mind. Once we got this in, we don't need any books. We can figure these things out without any further calculation. Just so the sun's going through Taurus, hits 0 degrees, nothing to Sag, but in Taurus, it's hitting 4 degrees. It's going to oppose my Jupiter and Scorpio. Taurus to Scorpio, it's an opposition. It's going to get to Virgo. It's going to get to 4 degrees a little further. It'll trine Virgo, Taurus to Virgo. There's a trine to my ascendant. Then it's going to hit 7 degrees. It's going to square the Leo and square my Saturn in Leo, squaring Taurus. Then when it gets 8 degrees, it's going to be 150 to Libra. Taurus to Libra, not really a major aspect, leave it out. When it gets to 13 degrees, it's going to be Leo. It's going to square the 13 degrees in Leo. And then it's going to oppose the 13 degrees Mercury in Scorpio. Then it's going to oppose the 15 degrees of Mars. So from 13 degrees Leo to Pluto to 13 degrees Scorpio of Mercury and 15 degrees Scorpio of Mars, in those few days, I'm going to get the square opposition in Taurus. that's going to be a relatively stressful time. That's a peak intense time. So then, I guess 19 degrees is going to hit Cancer. Go along from Taurus to Cancer, sextile. Taurus to Gemini is not anything. Taurus to Libra, no. Taurus to Taurus is going to conjunct my midheaven at 28 degrees. I'm just going to go through each of these. You can just bear with me for a minute, because just set the example thoroughly so it's just that little bit of repetition, you see it. When you're thinking through Gemini, Sun's in Gemini, it's going to hit, Venus and Sag is going to be in opposition. Scorpio, nothing. It hits Virgo, it's 4 degrees, it's going to square Virgo 4 degrees. It's 7 degrees, it's going to sextile the Leo, from Gemini to Leo. It's going to trine from Gemini to Libra. It's going to trine the Neptune. It's going to sextile the Pluto in Leo. It's not going to do anything to the Scorpio, the Mercury, or the Mars in Scorpio, or to the Cancer, Gemini to Cancer, or Scorpio, not anything. But Gemini to Gemini, the Sun, when it gets to 21 degrees, it's in Gemini. From Gemini to Gemini, you're going to get a conjunct Uranus. Put the conjunction in. So on the spreadsheet I gave you, it has it down below. You just copy the symbol and pull it up into the square. Once you have one, you can just copy it and move them over to make this up if you're using it in the spreadsheet. But when it gets to, you see Gemini to Libra for the Sun, that's a trine. To Taurus, no. So then when we go to, now we got 3 signs. To do 4, see, you were just going through this for a whole chart. It seems extensive, but once you do this one thing, you got it laid out for every planet going through every sign. You got a module that lets you see what's going to happen and lets you anticipate it. And you can use it for the Sun, for the Moon, for Mars, for any outer planets. So we're looking for the Sun for 1 month periods for today. But if you have the 7-year period of Uranus going to a sign, like Uranus is just going to Taurus, you can see the sequence of how this is going to spread out over 7 years. Wow, this is the textual transits. So Cancer to Scorpio is a trine, to Virgo is a sextile, to Leo, no, nothing, to Libra, a square, to Leo, nothing, to Scorpio, a trine, to Scorpio, a trine, to Cancer, Cancer to Cancer, conjunction to the Moon, to Gemini, no, small, 30 degrees, to Cancer to Libra, it's a square, so square my Sun, to Taurus, it's a sextile. So you're thinking sign to sign. And I tell you, it's not hard to figure out what aspect it would be. There you got it. So then we went ahead, I'm not going to do them all, but you just go through this for Leo, Virgo, Libra. And you see that it's different as you're going along. There are patterns within this, but it's, there's my transit guide. For any planet going through any sign, for any moon, for it's going to go in these sequences and these events. So if you know a planet's going to be 2 years in a sign, well, you spread this out over 2 years. If you know someone's going to be there for a month, it's got a month. If you got it's going to be there for 2.5 days, which is the moon, that'll spread itself over 2.5 days. It's a really useful thing. Like I had to learn these things before there were computers, because you had to get into the calculations, and it seemed intimidating at first. I mean, they used to teach you logarithms to teach you calculations just so you avoided basic mathematical deduction. So it was really a long way around and almost more punishment than it was worth to avoid 1 or 2 long divisions. But this is letting you can do this in your mind, making these associations, drawing these in, and then you got it. And then eventually you just do this anytime you're thinking on your own. You just think like that. But this is the sequence. Now from there,